Hey everybody, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Now, before we get started, I have some sad news. After over a decade, my DeviantArt account has been terminated, and to me, that's got to be the absolute worst thing that has ever happened to me since the time when YouTube gave me a false strike on one of my videos a decade ago. But on the other hand, while I did enjoy promoting and advertising my blog show on that website, I guess my DeviantArt account's deactivation is kind of a blessing in disguise, as my sister describes it. Plus, I still hope that you guys, my loyal viewers, can still support me on my Facebook page or on Patreon. Anyway, for this video, let me take you back to the very second episode that I ever made, which was Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. Now, while the video itself was kind of poorly done due to me being a novice blogger back then, I think the movie itself is pretty good, but not a perfect sequel. Sure, the character animation is a bit noodle-like and cartoony at times, and the plot was a bit predictable due to the environmental message. But I still thought the voice acting was great, the new world building and foodimals were creative, and the jokes were 10 times funnier than in Food Fight. However, the one thing that I didn't really like too much about it was its villain, Chester V. I mean, he was very despicable and manipulative, and every time he's on screen, he kind of makes me cringe and clench my teeth. Also, I really felt bad that not long after my blog, Animat gave this movie a 30-minute long negative review and labeled it as the #1 worst animated film of 2013. And frankly, I disagree with that, since I believe that Walking with Dinosaurs or Escape from Planet Earth should have been the #1 worst of 2013. Also, on the positive side, I'm glad that Isaac the Media Hunter gave it a positive review, and the funny thing about it was, his video was uploaded on my 28th birthday. Crazy, huh? However, to this day, I wish that my hero and inspiration, Huey Toomore, could have reviewed it if his arch nemesis, Count CGI, hadn't cursed his keyboard back then. Hopefully soon, once Huey can get his body back, he can finally get a chance to give his thoughts on Cloudy 2. Anyway, today, I'd like to share my thoughts on the very first animated Cloudy film and see how it holds up today. So, without any further ado, released on September 18th, 2009, the movie is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And now, on for the plot of the movie. Flint Lockwood is a young inventor who is often regarded as a failure due to his inventions mostly ending up faulty, unwanted, and or chaotic. However, Flint has support from his mom, but when she dies, he's left alone with his technophobic father, Tim Lockwood, who thinks he should be getting a real job at his sardine bait and tackle shop. When his hometown of Swallow Falls goes into an economic crisis because their primary source of income, a sardine cannery, was shut down, Flint decides to try out his latest invention, a machine that can turn water into food. But after hooking it up to the power station, the machine is launched into the atmosphere and later starts raining food, making Flint a local hero. The mayor tries to use this as a way to help their community, but later, when Flint senses something wrong with the machine, due to the food getting bigger, not long before the town's grand reopening, the mayor convinces him to ignore it. But then things get worse when the machine spins out of control and creates dangerous food storms, leaving it up to Flint to stop his creation before it turns the world into a monstrous foodtopia. So, what are my thoughts on the movie? Well, in my opinion, this was the absolute funniest animated film of 2009, and I really love watching it from time to time. And to further explain why I love this movie, let's move on to Mustang Notes. Now, as everybody knows, the movie is a loose adaptation of the 1978 children's book of the same name by Judy and Ron Barrett, where two children listen to their grandfather Henry tell a bedtime story about the town of Chew and Swallow, where the weather comes 3 times a day at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and is always food and beverages. By the way, I've read the book several times as a kid, whether being at school or at my Aunt Catherine's house. And to be honest, the book starts really sweet, nice, and pleasant, but then it becomes intense when the weather unexpectedly takes a turn for the worse, when destructive and uncontrollable storms of either unpleasant or dangerously oversized food causes unstoppable catastrophes for the townspeople, which forces them to abandon Chew and Swallow and relocate to a different community which has standard weather. Anyway, the movie was written and directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, marketing this as their feature directorial debut before directing the Lego Movie and the Jump Street films. Now, the film was first announced on May 9, 2003 by Sony Pictures Animation, a year after its establishment. Originally, the Brizzy brothers were brought in to direct the movie, with Wayne Rice adapting the script. But then in 2006, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller were hired as writers and directors. Later that year, they said that the movie would be an homage and a parody of disaster films such as Twister, Armageddon, The Core, and The Day After Tomorrow. While working on the script, Lord and Miller wrote a new draft which had the protagonist as a failed inventor who wanted to prove himself to his town, and they elevated the character of the tackle shop extra to be the protagonist's father, thereby creating a relationship that Amy Pascal had requested. The pair's experience on Cloudy taught them 2 valuable lessons: the power of creative collaboration and the importance of emotion in a story. Also to note, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is the second film after Monster House that was made using the animation rendering software Arnold, and Justin K. Thompson served as the film's production designer. Also, after the movie was released, it earned about $243 million worldwide on a budget of $100 million at the box office, and it received generally positive reviews from critics, who praised its colorful visuals, humor, characters, voice acting, and the score, while the simple character designs were said to be unfitting. Plus, other than getting a sequel in 2013, it also influenced an animated TV show, which ran for 2 seasons from February 20th, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. Anyway, when I saw Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs in theaters back then, not only did I watch the movie with my dad, but I also saw it in 3D, which I thought was a really amazing experience. Plus, I found it really special that it was theatrically released 2 days before my 19th birthday. And now, let's talk about the animation. And from my perspective, even though most of the characters are kind of cartoony, I think the CGI is still pretty good, mostly with the town of Swallow Falls, which starts out all gray and flavorless. But the best part about the animation is the food weather. Plus, there are several parts throughout the movie that I think are pretty clever references to the original book. My favorites being Flint's out-of-cider invention, Flint and Sam's Jell-O date, and the part where the townspeople make boats out of bread in order to evacuate the island. Another thing that I like about this movie is Flint's lab, which started out as a small treehouse in his parents' backyard, but as Flint grew up, it became a huge water tower-like structure with supplies and defunct inventions littering the backyard outside the entrance. And in my opinion, this lab is very creative and breathtaking due to it having a computer with multiple monitors, and I think the entrance is pretty interesting due to it being a porta-dump elevator which ascends into a repurposed school bus. Plus, I think most of the jokes throughout the movie are both pretty clever and hilarious, while some can be a little mature for younger audiences, if you know what I mean. And now, let's talk about Flint's food weather machine, known as the Flint-Lockwood Diatomic Supermutating Dynamic Food Replicator, or the FLDSMDFR for short. Now, this thing is programmed to turn water molecules into food, but after it gets shot up into the atmosphere, the machine creates food-related weather. Some of my favorites being the cheeseburger rain, jelly bean rainbows, and ice cream snow. But after several days, the machine begins to overload, and the food drastically increases in size, like huge steaks and hot dogs, which indicates their mutation tendencies. And on the day of the town's grand reopening, not only does the food weather get worse with spaghetti twisters and food hurricanes, but the machine forms a massive cocoon of food for its protection, appearing like a giant meatball. And in my opinion, the climax inside said meatball kind of reminds me of the climax in The Cat in the Hat. Also to note, when Huey Tumar reviewed this movie back in 2009, not only was he annoyed with an obnoxious anchovy, but sometime after launching his own FLDSMDFR, a giant meatball sadly crashed into his studio in the second dimension. And over the months since then, it became a real hassle for the construction crew to take it out, and said meatball became so moldy that Huey's studio became demolished after the 2010 holiday season, which is really disappointing. Anyway, now that we're done with Mustang notes, let's move on to the characters and their voice actors. Our main character, Flint Lockwood, is voiced by Bill Hader, whom I remember from Saturday Night Live, along with Hoodwink 2, Hood vs. Evil, Pixar's Inside Out, the 2017 Power Rangers movie, Disney's Ralph Breaks the Internet, It Chapter 2, Noelle, The Addams Family 2, the stupid and disgusting Angry Birds movies, and soon, he'll be the new Cat in the Hat. To me, Flint Lockwood is like a mix of Jimmy Neutron and Lewis Robinson due to him being a super genius whose inventions can mostly be disastrous, like spray-on shoes, which never comes off his feet, but later comes in handy nearing the end, a remote-controlled television who makes several appearances throughout the movie, a heron balder, which became trash, a flying car, which later got upgraded with wings, and rat birds, who are usually seen causing mischief and eating certain stuff like sardines, hot dogs, and bacon. Plus, I think Bill Hader does a great job sounding like a child in an adult's body, and he also does the FLDSMDFR's machine voice. Anyway, despite several mishaps, I like that Flint wants to help his hometown, and I like that he designs a control unit in his lab in order to communicate with his food weather machine, and a dangometer in case the food overmutates. Plus, I like that Flint's mom was one of the few people who believed in him, and I thought it was really sweet that she gave him a lab coat when he was a kid. Next is his monkey partner, Steve, voiced by Neil Patrick Harris, whom was in Purple People Eater, the 2 live-action Smurfs movies. He also played Count Olaf in the Netflix Series of Unfortunate Events series, He voiced Moyo in the Legend of Tarzan TV show, and he was the second host of DCA's California Screamin' before it became the Incredicoaster. To me, Steve is a very expressive, spontaneous, and erratic character, and I like that Flint invented a monkey thought translator in order to hear his thoughts. Also, Steve is obsessed with mustaches, and he tries to grab them whenever he sees one. Plus, his favorite food is gummy bears, despite the fact that he viciously tears them apart before eating them, as shown when he defends Flint's car from sentient gummy bears. Next we come to Sam Sparks, voiced by Anna Faris, best known from the Scary Movie films, My Super Ex-Girlfriend, along with voicing Jeanette Miller in the awful live-action Chipmunky sequels, Rachel Johnson in the 2010 Yogi Bear movie, and Jailbreak in Sony's The Emoji Movie. I don't care what any of you guys say. I think this movie's hilarious. Anyway, Sam is a young weather intern from New York City who aspires to become a meteorologist. To me, Sam is outgoing, extroverted, talkative, and socially competent. Plus, she's also brilliant and scientifically minded, but due to her being bullied as a child, she decided that it was best to connect with others by dumbing herself down and playing up her cuteness. Also to note, Sam has an intense passion for the weather, which often bleeds through her false cute persona. Plus, my favorite scene involving Sam is the part where she warns the television audiences that food storms would sweep across the globe. Next is Sam's cameraman, Manny, voiced by Benjamin Bratt, who'd later voice El Macho in Despicable Me 2 and Ernesto de la Cruz in Pixar's Coco. I find Manny to be not only a stoic man of a few words, but also a talented and intelligent character. Plus, Manny has a pretty interesting history for being a doctor, a pilot, and a comedian. Next on our list is Flint's technophobic dad, Tim Lockwood, voiced by James Caan, who sadly passed away 2 years ago. This character is a skilled fisherman and commonly expresses himself through fishing metaphors, which Flint doesn't get at all. Although immensely intelligent like his son, he struggles to comprehend topics unrelated to his interest in fishing, including technological literacy. Some of my favorite scenes involving Tim is when he encourages Flint to fix his mess after he felt emotionally defeated, and when he helps Flint by emailing a file to his cell phone, which was supposed to be the kill code for the FLDSMDFR. Next up is Officer Earl Devereaux, voiced by Mr. T, whom was in Rocky III and the WrestleMania films. To me, Earl is one of the funniest characters in this movie due to him being a very athletic and overprotective man whose passion for his job is often excessive and nimbly leaping into action at the slightest sight of trouble, which he can sense through the tingling in his chest hairs. Plus, Earl often catches Flint in the middle of potentially dangerous experiments or suspicious activity, creating a tense relationship between them. Also to note, Earl cares about the safety of the people of Swallow Falls, mostly his wife Regina and his son Cal, and he has a very strong moral compass. Some of the most memorable scenes involving Earl is when he asks Flint to make his food weather machine rain something special for Cal's birthday, and when he organizes an evacuation. Another character to talk about is Baby Brent McHale, voiced by Andy Samberg, whom was in Hot Rod, Space Chimps, the Hotel Transylvania quadrilogy, W.A.G. Storks, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. When he was an infant, Brent became the official mascot of Baby Brent Sardines, along with town mascot and local celebrity of Swallow Falls. And he was also a school bully to Flint. But soon, Brent's fame faded after Flint created the FLDSMDFR. Thankfully, due to him realizing that his perceived fame was just an illusion from living in a small secluded island, Brent decides to help Flint and Sam ascend to the FLDSMDFR, hoping to find a new identity in the clouds. And while inside the giant meatball, he discovers his new identity after being eaten whole by a man-eating chicken, and uses his newfound confidence to stave off the vicious food creatures and return Sam to the flying car when she went into an anaphylactic shock after being scratched by a peanut brittle. Finally, we come to Mayor Shelbourne, the film's primary antagonist, voiced by Ash Williams himself, Bruce Campbell. Groovy. Anyway, in my opinion, Shelbourne is an undeniably sleazy man, willing to say and do anything to fill his pocketbook. Plus, he's rather manipulative, and he enjoys playing to an audience, often feigning companionship or appreciation in order to get what he wants. In the movie, not only does he change the town's name to Chew and Swallow and plans to make it a food tourist destination, but his greed expands from money to Flint's delicious food weather, and he gorges himself, unable to contain his voracious greed. Plus, his eating habit causes his body to expand so much that he actually becomes confined to a motorized cart. In my eyes, Mayor Shelbourne truly shows his villainous colors during the scene where he convinces Flint to let his machine continue its course, and when he destroys Flint's control device with a radish. And I thought he was really stupid when he attempts to leave Chew and Swallow on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich boat, only to eat it entirely, leaving him stranded in the middle of the ocean. Other voice actors in the film include Bobby J. Thompson, Al Roker, Lauren Graham, Will Ford, and Angela V. Shelton. And now on to my final words. Overall, Cloudy the Chance of Meatballs truly is the most delicious and funniest animated film of 2009, and one of my favorite animated films from the 2000s in general. Sure, some of the characters are kind of noodle-like and uncanny, but still, the rest of the animation is pretty good, and I like that there are a lot of references to the original book. Flint is a relatable main character, mostly due to him wanting to help his hometown, despite fame getting to his head. His dad Tim is understandable too, due to him trying to communicate with Flint and setting him straight when he notices something off about the food weather. Sam is a cute and perky weather girl, and I think she and Flint make a great couple together. The side characters like Steve, Brent, Manny, and Earl are memorable and funny at times, and the villainous Mayor Shelbourne was gluttonous, manipulative, and greedy. Also to note, most of the comedy was hilarious and clever, while some of it can also be a bit mature for younger audiences. But despite all of that, I like that the film goes the extra mile by working beyond the material given to them and making it something funny, heartwarming, and pretty to look at. Not to mention eye-popping and mouth-watering. I give this movie a full 100%. Well, that's all for now, viewers. Be sure to join me for my next blog, where we look at a 1960s movie musical based on a beloved Charles Dickens classic, Mustang Power.